Hello everybody! So in today's episode, I thought I'd take a brief look into the mysteries and secrets behind the TF2 soundtrack. But wait, hasn't everyone and their grandma's cat already made a video just like this? Well, they made the mistake of only covering the dumb and unimportant stuff like the melody or the harmony. The truly important work is picking through every minute detail so I can bully Valve for leaving in mouse clicks on their final recordings. So, naturally, we'll be doing that too.
Intruder alert.
So Valve actually, quite foolishly, allowed me to have access to the sheet music. Historically though, sheet music and I have just not gotten along. So instead, I'll be exporting these as MIDI and dragging it into Ableton. First of all, this score doesn't give the BPM for whatever reason, defaulting to 120. At least MuseScore is kind enough to provide us with this smooth, slowed down version of the song. This is quite nice, you know? Rather befitting the direction they give it. Though I did have to mute the drums first, because MuseScore thinks this is supposed to be a whistle sound. Okay. Here's the thing though. Other transcriptions actually do have the tempo, and the recording is pretty much exactly dead on 180 BPM, because every single one of the songs I looked at is played to a digital metronome, so... Not sure why they didn't just write it in, but okay. Except Team Fortress 2, for some reason, which kinda just has whatever tempo it feels like. Like, even the clock ticking at the start is slower than the actual song, but whatever. The actual analysis of the song, though, is pretty simple. It's similar to 12-bar blues, but instead of 1-4-5-4, it's just 1-4-1. Every subsequent section being a slight variation to that, adding supporting parts or dropping out the lead melody for a solo section. There's only one exception to this, and it's right after the drum solo, which is only 8 bars long. Also interesting to note is that the bass line to this song is almost identical to the bass line of Team Fortress 2. All we gotta do is transpose this little piece here, and it's basically the same. The big left hook in this song is the ending chord, which is just one giant D sharp. The key's in E minor, so if you pitch it up by 1, it sounds, quote-unquote, normal now. And the same goes for the chord that kicks off the drum solo. The main way TF2 gets its sound is through layering its parts. Most of these songs can be boiled down to 2 or 3 melodic lines that are being doubled by a cloud of 100 different brass instruments to create this massive wall of sound. But more importantly than any of that, I managed to catch me a genuine transcription error. You see that? That's a fake natural F in the sheet music. None of the other figures that look like this have an F in it. It's just this one note. Checkmate, Valve.
Faster than a speeding bullet.
So this is another track that's played almost exactly to a click. Here's the wacky part though. I'm sure you're all familiar with the beloved bongos on this track, but what you didn't know is that they are way too precisely on the beat to be natural. They have to have either been time corrected, or what's quite possible is that these were actually played using samples. I'm onto you, Valve. Anyway, despite being just like 90% drums, this track in particular does some pretty fucking wild shit, man. The intro section and the bongo/piano stab section is entirely in 10/4, or 5/4. Look, I fell asleep in time signature class, okay? The important part is that they're in groups of 5. And naturally, here's what it would sound like if it were in good old American 4/4 instead. Despite that, the first section here has 3 repeats and then a little fragmented bar, and it creates this feeling of smoothly blending between the parts. Just for comparison, here's how the repeat section handles things. It sounds like we're right into the action now, so to speak. I also like that the sheet music conveys none of this. It doesn't say, hey, this part's in 5/4, probably because they think so little of any would-be players. What, you can't play ultra-fast and precise bongo parts in 5/4? What are you, bad? It's also not in minor. It's closer to Dorian with heavy borrowing of the tritone from the blues scale. Although some chromatic notes do get sprinkled in there, in particular these two notes. And of course, here's how it sounds if we force it to be minor. And the final little chord swell outlines an E diminished chord, but with an A in the bass. So here it is again, strictly in minor. Just doesn't sound right, does it?
Magic.
So there's some neat stuff in this one too. For one, there's a tempo change, although it's not where you'd expect it to be. This bit here always felt to me like it was slowing down, but that's just because they strip away all of the rhythmic information, save for this guitar. Anyway, for the most part, this is a 4-part piece. Drums, bass line, lead melody, and some chord support, but thickened out by doubling parts and octaves and layering thousands of instruments over top. You could easily strip this down to its essentials, while still retaining basically everything that makes this medic. Similar to Intruder Alert, though, the bulk of this piece is like a 12-bar, 1-4-1 sort of thing. But Medic also has this little 5-bar downlift into each next section. Interestingly, only the intro and the very last section deviate from this, the final section in particular moving to a 5-chord at one point. Really, this piece can be largely simplified down to just these 2 sections here, then we just distill any instruments that are more or less duplicating the same part, and you're left with this. This can be even further simplified when you realize these melodic figures are very similar to each other, the only difference being this ending bit going up or down and the chord they're on. You can quite literally see, visually, how it's repeating itself. There it is, Medic distilled. A lot less intimidating now, ain't it? But in other news, personally, my favorite transcription error in this score is that the tuba, electric guitar, and bass guitar near the end don't outline the same figures. Given that the other instruments spell this out, I'd say it's supposed to look like this instead. But what I like most is that every single one of these is wrong in a unique way. Like, look at this. Astounding.
Rocket Jump Waltz.
So, this is actually the shortest song on the whole soundtrack. But for one, this isn't actually a waltz. It's in 4/4 as opposed to 3/4, unless you don't trust dance-forums.com to be a reliable source of information. And on top of that, the BPM is wrong too. It's not in 107, it's in 111. Ha! How foolish. Anyway, every bar, the brass section is only playing one note, which is a very textbook demonstration of voice leading, which is very easy, by the way. And we're done. Yeah. This is also a pretty good candidate for melodic analysis, too. The whole song is pretty much exclusively in E minor, with one pretty bizarre exception. The 5 chord is actually minor and major at the same time, although even more confusingly, it's not a minor major chord. This isn't a mistake either. As far as I can tell, the song contains both notes, so this is like a 5 add sharp 9 or something. Look, I'm not much of a chord namer, okay? The important part's that it's got both a minor and major third in it at the same time, but the melody itself has these little 16th note stepwise motions to connect each major tone after every half bar. It really gives the melody a feeling of connectedness, despite never repeating. The writing on this piece in particular is so tidy, you'd think it was purpose written for like a music theory class or something. And for the exact opposite of that feeling, I now present to you robots.
Robots.
So structure-wise, sections, there's an intro, a main section, and then a repeat of that main section with a different melody over it. Oh, and there's also this long ambient section that I'm sure brings all the music theorists to the yard because, oh my god, the melodies in groups of 5. How wacky, but you know what? It's fucking boring, and I don't care, so goodbye. This is a prime example of a piece that's more about the rhythm of the melody than the pitch content being required to form perfect Bach-esque consonances at all times or whatever. Because first of all, the super identifiable main bass line is just stepping in thirds, and then the chords themselves are moving up and down by 1 semitone for the most part. But also, by all accounts, the lead melody and bass line conflict really hard. Like, okay, sure, the first melody is just in good old D minor, though even that conflicts at points. But this section here is just really dissonant. Parts of it, intentionally or not, form minor ninths and major sevenths. Even the sheet music just kinda gives up and tells the saxophonist to solo in D minor-ish. Yeah, okay. You know, if I tried writing this exact song on like a crappy piano synth or whatever, I'd probably start throwing up in my mouth over listening to some of these dissonances, and yet the final recording sounds really good. The lesson here being that the sounds you write your song with matter. Anyway, it's time for the fan favorite pedantic nitpicks section. First of all, I heard a click at the start. Let this be a lesson for all of you. Be sure to edit out the mouse clicks in your final recording, or 9 years later someone will make an internet video about it, long after everyone's already moved on. Oh, and these 2 notes seem, flat to me. Checkmate once again, Valve.
Miscellaneous.
Hey, babe. You ever wanted to know what they're shouting at the end of the Kazatsky kick taunt? Well, new research has come to light recently, and we have uncovered that it is, in fact, Shrump Bow. Oh, and there's a click at the start of this one, too. Now, not many people know this, but the Demo Man is actually the only class that's black. And so what note does Valve decide to give him on the class selection screen? Why, it's the tritone, as in the blues scale. What are you trying to say, Valve? Are you saying that he's cool because he's black? They give the sniper the major seventh. Are they trying to say he has the most tension behind him? Why do Scout and Spy share a note? Is this a clue from Valve from the very beginning that the Scout and the Spy are actually related? Anyway, kiddos, that's all for now. Be sure to subscribe for more real and true game theory facts. Or I guess in this case, it's music theory. That's stupid. That's so fucking stupid. Holy shit.